There we go. So, what I've done here is I've just put out, here's a bunch of characters, because what you've got to understand is that if there's a really strong meta in a deck in the meta, then it may be something as fundamental as you needing to change the team that you're playing with, okay? That changes strategy, that changes everything. So if we're going that far back, as an example of what you might do, I might say, think about some of these type of characters. If you're going to your local meta, down the local gaming store, and there's 6, Jin or Padme decks or Chewie decks or something like that with just second chance ammo belt going off all the time, well then in your meta, what the sensible thing to do is to start playing decks like this to counter it. That's how you do tournament play and competitive play. You try and anticipate what the meta is and go and take something against that. And these are the kind of characters that work very nicely. And the reason that characters like this will work very nicely against those decks is disrupt. Okay? So disrupt, we're talking about that, the ability to knock out your opponent's resources. Now the reason that all of these characters are useful for that is they've got big disrupt sides, or they're cheap and you could have a couple of these, okay? So the reason why disrupt becomes so important against second chance ammo belt is one of the drawbacks of second chance ammo belt is that, well, that is 4 resources, it costs quite a bit. And of course you can ramp into it, and that's why when you're playing against second chance ammo belt you need to be very careful that if they've got an upgrade out at the start of the next round, especially if they gain the initiative, they're going to be able to play out second chance. If all they need is just one or more cost upgrade out, and they'll be able to get that second chance out. So you always have to bear that in mind. So one of the things that you can do to really put the squeeze on a second chance ammo belt deck is just disrupt its resources. And of course all of these characters are very, very good at doing that. So for instance, I think currently one of the best builds to fight against an ammo belt second chance deck is known as the Imperial Inspection deck. And I just realised I haven't even actually pulled those cards out. Just one second and I'll just get these out for us. So we have Imperial Inspection, and what also of course combos very well with it is the Salvage Stand. Now the reason why these work so well together is primarily Salvage Stand is going to put the, excuse me, that's Galaxy of Heroes going off. The reason that Salvage Stand works so well is because of course it puts the squeeze on the opponent's resources, and if you can get rid of those resources at the start of the turn, before they've had a chance to play out their upgrades, they're never going to get that second chance out, or they're going to really struggle to. And Imperial Inspection, what that allows you to do of course is also it keeps the, if they get the advantage say and they're able to keep the initiative and they keep getting the battlefield, if you also have Imperial Inspection, then what you can do is you can use your Imperial Inspection to bounce out any upgrades that they play during the turn. So they can't end the turn then with their 1 or 2 cost upgrade out that will allow them at the start of the next round to be able to play out their second chance. So these two together keeps those 1 and 2 upgrades off the table with Imperial Inspection, and then of course it means that Salvage Stand stops them from being able to play them back out or get to 3 and be able to play the second chance out. So this is why currently I feel like this is a very strong deck build to play with if you're seeing lots of second chance ammo belt. And of course Unkar goes very well with it because he fires off those 2 cards with a total of 4 of his sides. So if you roll Unkar Plut out, it's it's a high probability of firing at least one of these off and a good chance of firing 2 of them off. So disrupting against that deck is really powerful, and of course that's something that we don't generally tend to think of as being something we want to use a lot, because often we roll out those disrupt, and when the disrupt rolls and we've already disrupted their resources, we tend to think, oh, this is a dead die, this is useless, it's not doing anything here for me now. But actually I'd be very keen to leave an Unkar pluck die out on 2 disrupt, because what I don't want them doing, of course, is then at the end of the turn, rolling out their dice, and then resolving some resources and having some, and then getting to the start of the next turn and getting to 4 or something like that, and then it all going wrong there. So having disrupt die and even just leaving them out on the table, it just constantly threatens that they're just going to have no resources. And if you can choke a second chance Amabelt deck of resources, you're going to be in the clear. And what's also really nice, of course, is when you can do things like so Unkar and Salvage Stand mean that you can activate your character and get rid of potentially 2 resources if you've got 2 salvage stands. And of course, Han Solo allows you to do that. If you're playing the Rey, you can activate Han and he might roll his 2 disrupt and you get to use it. What you could also do, of course, now you've got fast hands. So there's a number of ways in which you can get that disrupt off very, very quickly. Now, the other thing that you can do, apart from disrupt, is discard. Because, of course, if you're discarding their second chances, then that makes it considerably more difficult for them to be able to play it out. So not only have you got this sort of disrupt path, but you can also go the heavy discard path. Now, what's also an advantage with going the discard route in the meta generally is, and I think a discard route is really strong at the moment, is because it means that you have a racing chance against a second chance Amabelt deck. It's trying to stay alive and mill you first. Well, if you're also trying to stay alive and mill them out, and you're doing that by having lots of discard yourself, it's a similar strategy. You're just not getting there in quite the same way. Maybe you're playing villain discard, for instance, or villain mill. But if you've got lots of discard, then you can potentially hit their second chances, of course, which is amazing. But generally, you can just, again, stop them having resources. You might be getting rid of cards like Logistics from their hand, or you might be getting rid of their 1 and 2 cost upgrades, their data pad that they were relying upon to be able to play this turn, so that next turn they could ramp that into the second chance, and so on. So aggressively disrupting and aggressively discarding against the Amabelt second chance deck can really do the business. Yes, they've got recursion, but recursion generally costs some sort of money to play. Jin's Rebel, even if she gets to play Rebel for free, is still going to have to pay 2 for second chance. And of course, if you're disrupting as well as discarding, then you've got control over that. One of the things that I will just point out is that, of course, I'm sort of neglecting to mention aggro here, and that's because aggro decks are the ones that are going to most struggle with a second chance Amabelt deck. And C-3PO is, I think he's a brilliant include in just about every. If you've got red hero, I can't really think of a deck where you wouldn't want to have C-3PO in, because what 3PO allows you to do is become really flexible. You might not have a build with any discard in or with any disrupt in. Well, that's fine, because 3PO allows you to. You could have Leia Akbar, and you haven't got any disrupt on any of your character dice there. It's hard to get hold of disrupt on your other cards as well. But I mean, you've got +3s on things like scout rifles and so on. Well, you could turn that +3 into a +3 disrupt. That doesn't quite work because it's a modified side, and 3PO doesn't work on modified sides. But you get the point. I mean, you could be running rocket launcher, and you could be disrupting 3 or even 4 resources, because C-3PO can turn those sides into an anything. So what 3PO allows you to do is be really flexible in what you want to hit. He smooths out if you're trying to do damage. He turns everything into damage side. At least one die all into damage sides if you want. And of course, he can suddenly go right 4 discard or 4 disrupt. Whatever you think is going to stand your best chance of getting rid of second chance and then being able to play it. So 3PO even fits in very happily into aggro deck. Yes, he's a bit slower, but you're playing against a second chance Amabelt deck. They're not going to go fast. So now I want to switch attention to some just really particular cards that you can use. This is one of my favourites, and I think it's an absolutely super powerful card against second chance ammo belt decks. So the reason why Confiscation is so good is, I mean, if you're probably going to run it in a type of deck that's going to build you quite a lot of resources anyway, so you're going to need to be running, like a Jabba or an Unkar build, or potentially, like a Django or a Sing maybe. I mean, Django's got those couple of resource sides, but you can generally find some good ways of getting together that 3 resources that you need to be able to play your Confiscation. Now, the timing of your Confiscation is really important. Let's say they've got their second chance and they've got their ammo belt out. They feel like they're sitting pretty. They're up against Django or a Sing is a good example. They think there's going to be loads of damage coming at them. They're fine. They can discard their ammo belt before, and their second chance stays intact and the combo. All you need to do, of course, is make sure that they haven't got 3 resources to play it straight back out again, or that they haven't got something that they can upgrade over. And all you need to do is confiscate the second chance. Yes, that costs 3, that's not cheap, but you confiscate that second chance and then you force through your killing damage. So there's a bit of setting up in that instance, but Confiscation allows you to not only get around them having an ammo belt in, it also allows you to get around the second chance's effect at all. So you don't even need to deal with the ammo belt. You can just bounce that second chance back and then whammo, finish off that character. And then if you're really feeling a bit cocky, you might have some discard to then discard that card, because I'm expecting that to be later on in the turn. They might only have 1 or 2 cards left by then, because they've been doing a bit of removal or whatever, and you've been setting up all your dice to have lots and lots of damage available, and then you play Confiscation, kill them off, and then you discard that card away. I mean, that's just a dream combo, or a dream play against a second chance ammo belt deck. Okay, now disarm is something that you can use to get rid of the ammo belt. And of course it means you only need a 1, so that's fairly easy to be able to get. I'll just point out that it's only a weapon or equipment, so you can only use it to get rid of the ammo belt. But what it does mean is that it effectively turns, because that ammo belt is worth 5 health on that character, because of course you have to deal that damage, it's going to get discarded, they're going to heal 5, and then you've got to deal another 5 to be able to kill that character. So effectively this, in a sense, against a deck like that, says turn that 1 damage that you're using for the disarm into 5 damage, which is really cool. Gets rid of the ammo belt, and then of course you can then swing with the rest of whatever you've got, which hopefully should be enough to get rid of that second chance. And sometimes in these decks it is a case of just getting the combo off the field, because again, if you've got some disrupt, then once you've got it off the field, if they manage to get it off, then Confiscation and Disarm can be really helpful in just getting them off the field again, with you dealing some damage, leaving you free to then disrupt or have your salvage stand go off or whatever it is that you're using. Now the reason I put in Vibro Knucklers is really trying to look for ways of aggro type decks or aggro builds being able to aggressively control. And one of the things that I do like about Vibro Knucklers is that whilst it's not cheap at 3, its sides essentially say 2, 2, 3, 2, 3 on the discards as well. And of course it's got ambush. So if you're an aggro deck, are typically going to be faster than the second chance ammo belt decks that you're coming up against. And so Vibro Knucklers is an opportunity. If you know that they've recurred their second chance, or you're thinking they're probably about to play it out, the Vibro Knucklers is that chance to play out your ambush upgrade, and then discard them for 3 cards in the one go, and stand a decent chance, of course, then of maybe hitting that second chance, or at least hitting the ammo belt that they maybe were just about to play out. And it's just something that can help that aggro to just force through the damage. Now, in the last little tip I'm going to give for aggro decks, and I'll just put loads of cards out, is because what I feel is really important with an aggro deck is you need to be able to, in the current meta, the current build, the current climate, you need to be able to stick out. There's no sound. We got sounds back 4 minutes in, so don't know what you said in the beginning. Sorry, guys. I am doing a live video here. I'll quickly run over what I'd said at the start, just at the end here. One of the things that's really, really super important when it comes to being able to get your damage through is being able to do it really quickly early on. So if you're thinking, having characters like Vader with 2 Vader dice in, most of the damage is going to come from your Vader dice. It's not necessarily going to come from your upgrades through the game. So if you can maximise getting your damage out in round 1 and in round 2, so you can really go after those characters that they're going to want a second chance ammo belt, then I would say you need to throw caution to the wind early game against second chance ammo belt decks. You just have to, because in my testing, what I'm tending to see is that almost exclusively, if they see their second chance, then they're going to win against you. And so, if they draw it at the start, it's a massive uphill struggle. Perhaps if they do misplays, or as an aggro deck, you're able to quite aggressively sort of disrupt against them. You can still have cards like, did I take it out here? No, I didn't. You can still have cards like Force Throw in those sort of builds. And that's still going to fit into an aggro deck. And Force Throw, of course, has got some disrupt size on it, so you can be disrupting, but you need to maximise your damage as much as you can really early on. And so I would be discarding to reroll like a maniac in the early rounds. And who knows, it may well be that a card like Boundless Ambition, which kind of won Worlds, it's a strong card when you put it with the right team, and if you're putting it with something like Vader or with one of these big characters that can chuck out lots of potential damage, you might have somebody blue with Aura Sing or somebody like that, then if you're able to just discard away and smooth out your damage and try and max your damage in rounds 1 and 2 and just go all out at killing that character, powerful upgrades, Kylo Ren's lightsaber is going to be no good to you once it's trying to chop through ammo belt and second chance. You have to kill the characters whilst they haven't got it, and so I'd be going absolutely mad at the start of the game trying to dish out all the beats onto Jyn, onto Padme, and onto those characters. Right, so let me just check the stream here, see if we've got any particular questions. Not at the moment, so looks like there was something a little bit funny with the sound at the start of the video. And so just to reiterate for those of you who didn't hear at the start there, what I was mainly pointing at was that what you need to make sure of when you are in this current meta and in this current the way things are, is that whilst people are getting quite angry about second chance ammo belt, in every meta there tends to be something printed, something made, something put into, something that's perhaps slips through testing. Maybe this is one of those things that did. But I think what's important is you don't go, oh great, that's it, this is rubbish, I'm not playing this game anymore because they've printed these 2 cards that are allowed to go together. I think if you are playing something like Second Chance Ammo Belt in a casual sort of situation or environment, then yeah, don't do that. that's really crap. That's not going to make people enjoy Destiny. That's not cool at all. But if we're playing competitively and we're playing in a sort of a tournament scene and we're trying to find the best decks, then in every CCG there always are those combos and powerful plays that rise to the surface. And what other people need to be doing when that happens is, or what we all need to be doing is deck building, deck testing, taking ideas and trying to see what can break that deck. And that's completely normal. It's always the same. There's always something broken in some CCG somewhere. Sometimes it's just not always discovered even, of course. So when something does come through like this, what it can mean is that we might need to adjust our play a little bit. Now some people might say that's not a cool meta. The fact that I need to adjust the decks I'm playing and what I'm doing because there are these cards in the meta and people are playing with them, that's not fair. Again, in casual, I grant you that's fine. If you don't enjoy it, then that's not good casual play. But if it's tournament play, then there's something along the lines of, well, look, the tools are out there. So what we have to do is just adjust our play. And that's why most people tend to lean towards doing aggro type builds. And that's probably why we're getting a big old kickback from the community. And Second Chance Amabelt may well be errated. I'm not saying it should or it shouldn't be. It may well be because it's very, very powerful. But of course, when most people play in aggro decks, when it's the hard counter to aggro decks, that's going to result in a really big kickback against it. And so I feel like what we need to just bear in mind is that yes, aggro decks are going to have a tough time against this, but if people start playing decks like Imperial Inspection that are going to give Second Chance Amabelts decks a hard time, well then if more of those are coming in, aggro decks tend to do quite well against Imperial Inspection or slightly better. It's a better matchup for them. So it all swings in roundabouts, and to me that's what starts to make a healthy meta. It's the sort of paper, scissors, stone, and everyone trying to just get the upper hand against this matchup or that matchup. And I think that's actually what creates an interesting meta, because you've got very different type of decks, all trying to achieve victory through quite different ways and having very different matchups against each other. I think that's pretty much everything I just wanted to go through, and I hope you guys are finding that helpful. Be happy to change your play if you're coming up against lots and lots of Second Chance Amabelt in a competitive environment. If you're just trying to play casually, then tell them, don't be stupid, play something fun. But personally, I love the challenge of, wow, this is really, really strong. How can I break that? How can I get around that? What cards are in the pool? What ways can I play that are going to mean I am victorious against the Second Chance Amabelt or whatever the dominant thing is? Because there'll be others, guys, in this game and in every CCG. And it's just a simple case of us being versatile and changing our play. That's what we need to be able to do as competitive tournament players who are trying to do well in whatever meta. And yeah, sometimes there'll be a meta where you're like, I love playing aggro. It's really frustrating that this is out there. That's fine, because there'll be a time when it's all control and the control seems to be stronger and so on and so forth. So, and remember how quickly things can change as well. I mean, just look at how 2 months ago we thought it was going to be all Django at Worlds. Well, Django was hardly in sight really in Worlds once it got to the business end. So relax, things will change as more people start realising, oh, if I disrupt, if I discard, if I have some of these particular cards in, then Second Chance Amabelt is neutered really quite strongly. So anyway, there's a few thoughts. We've got a couple of questions here. What have we got here? So where did you guys end up as the best Second Chance Amabelt deck? Well, I think what you'll find is the Padme Padme builds are strong. They are really strong, because one of the things that Jyn can struggle with is just getting the cards out of their deck. She's good at discard, of course, but hard to get the cards out of deck. I think if you play with red, that gives you then Spynet, and it gives you C-3PO, which is really good, which is why I like Jyn Akbar, and I prefer that build overall. I just think it's stronger. And of course, you can potentially get a Con Artist off. You could have Con Artist going with Second Chance and Ammo Belt. So that works. So I don't... But of course, if you've got the sort of Jedi Mill type aspect with a Rey and so on in with Padme, well then you can have patience and very powerful discarding cards going on as well there then. So what have we got here? Yeah, Stephen's saying fencing coaches tell him if your opponent does something and it works, well then you have to change your tactics. If you do something and it works, do it again. And people ultimately have just realised that, yeah, Second Chance Ammo Belt works for now, but that means that those of us who aren't actively playing with it or wanting to find ways around it have to work a little bit harder for that. What would you do with a Vader Raider deck against Second Chance Ammo Belt deck? Well, I'd play Boundless Ambition. I'd be playing Boundless Ambition. I'd be mulliganing for it. Because what I need those characters to do is I need Vader to do 12 damage in that first round from Boundless Ambition, because that's probably going to kill Jyn. And if you can get Jyn to something like, if you can kill her first round, you're in, or Padme first round, that's it. You're going to win that game then. If you get to the second round, it starts getting chancy, because of course they're going to see another 5 cards. That's mean they've potentially seen 15 cards with the mulligan as well. That's half the deck. They're probably going to have seen a second chance against that, and all they're going to, if they're even vaguely sensible, all they're going to mulligan for is their second chance to get against the Vader Raider deck. So the game just asks cards to get rid of stuff. When you play Blue-Red Hero, well, Red Hero, like I said, has got access to 3PO, which means you can change things up a little bit there, and I think you can also be quite disrupty. So it's normally red and yellow are the colours that do the better disrupt. So I'm thinking of. So I think one of the characters I put up there was Snap. Obviously, he's very good at disrupting, so that can work. And then if you're playing Blue Hero, I think Blue Hero is the one that's going to struggle the most. And I think really what you've got to heavily lean upon then is mega fast early crazy damage. So you need Rey to blow up and just dish out a whole bunch of beats in those first 2 rounds. And you need. It's hard early on, but you need to go hard on the disrupt. So you need things like Force Throw with the disrupt sides to be able to get that off. And I think what you'd start doing with your deck building is you've got to really strongly consider including some cards that you might not necessarily have included, but because they've got that discard, the disrupt, it makes they become much more important. And of course get more discard in your deck. So you might not have played Force Push with Rey, but I might be including that now because it's got the discard on there, and it's got two shooty sides that can work with disarm. There are cards out there that you can get working and get using. So yeah. Right, anyway, that's probably enough for now. So I hope you find that helpful. And guys, as ever, if you haven't checked out swdestiny.com, please go check them out. They host 7 Gaming Network videos, and they're just legends, and they have loads of great articles over there. The Knights of Ren podcast is definitely my favourite, even though there are so many good podcasts now out there. But yeah, go check them out as well. If you wanted more of this kind of chat and more of this kind of advice around those competitive elements, then Knights of Ren are really super good for that. Right. If you want to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me through the Knights of Ren Discord chat, or you could, if you joined 7 Gaming Network's Patreon, then you can join in the Discord chat that we've got going on. There's a real good little Patreon community growing all the time now, which is really exciting, and of course it's allowing me to make more videos like this. So yeah, until next time guys, please keep enjoying Destiny, because it's a marvellous game.